Hello, welcome to Soul Clinic with Chang. I have a feeling that today it's going to be a long one. Uh, we'll see how long it will actually end up being. And I love about the current, what I love about the current status of this channel, it's like this is semi-public, in theory, and especially for the lifetime of these videos, not necessarily like the immediate viewership, like right after the upload time. For now, I don't get a lot of views, and so it is a small group. So it feels like, although this is theoretically public and anyone can watch this, anyone can hear me talking, yet it's almost like I'm in a safe place with people who resonate with me, because at this early stage for this channel, I trust that like these videos only reflect the core vibrational matches. Okay, people who are who can resonate with me in the deepest level. So, the reason why I preface with that, this is going to be another one of those public processing videos, but I think this is going to be a lot more coherent than the previous ones, where I wasn't really sure where I was going, what I was feeling, why I was feeling what I was feeling. But this one, although it's gonna be a lot more coherent, it may be a little too complex. But I trust that there is going to be a point to me doing this and you watching this in the end. And I got reminded of that yesterday when a wonderful being reached out, and we had a pretty good, pretty fun time chatting over video. And he encouraged me to keep up this channel, because he knows I have a high vibe. He knows I am a high vibe being. So shout out to him. And although I have been talking about me feeling ready to make this new move that I got inspired out of nowhere, past 3 videos, I think. Today's Tuesday. I started. I that hit me on Saturday, I think. I still haven't made the move. And all sorts of memories and emotions, difficult ones, almost like my past maybe 10 years, 15 years of my life, coming back to haunt me in a sense while I'm about to make this move. And it almost feels like I'm getting sucked back into, there's a metaphor or an analogy that I use often, I like to use. Crabs, those little creatures. And in Korea we have crabs as well, and there's a saying. I think. Well, I think I got it somewhere. Well, it doesn't really matter. In a crab boat, like a fishing boat that catches crabs. So when they, you use the net to get the crabs onto the boat, and then they should have a container, right, for the crabs. But what's interesting is that they don't have a lid or a top over that container that has the caught crabs. And the reason, or a bucket, if you are talking about not boats, but you can actually, well, anyways, a bucket, a container, whatever that is. A crab, you don't need a lid, because whenever one crab tries to escape, the other crabs will pull it back in. So they're their own guards against anyone who's in the same bucket, who's in the same boat, who's on the same boat, quite literally, facing the same outcome, same end, same destiny. They make sure no one would escape who's suffering from the same fate, who's gonna suffer the same fate. So that's somewhat like how I feel. Not necessarily other people pulling me back, but my memories and my old, not mine, but old patterns, energies, even entities. But we don't need to go there. Beliefs, belief systems, beliefs coming from belief systems, and emotions, emotional patterns, and behavioral patterns stemming from those two, beliefs and emotions. And so I'm in this interesting space where the past is known. And this morning it was very difficult for me to process all these things coming up, even on top of the dream I had this morning, which wasn't pleasant. But I looked up on the internet, and it's supposed to actually be a good dream, an auspicious one, a lucky one. So I'm doing a little better than this, like, early morning today. But now I'm in a space where the past is known and the future is unknown, of course. And the past, of course, I don't want to go back. And especially when I'm talking about the past, the mistakes and similar cases when I made a similar move and it didn't pan out the way I thought it would. So maybe I could start there, and that's one of the ahas that I had this morning, helping me do better, get out of those emotional tangles. So looking back to the past, I wouldn't have made some moves had I known how they will pan out. And of course. But I didn't know. I hadn't known. So I did that anyways. And that's actually the point. I didn't know how it will come out exactly because knowing the outcome, would have made me not make the move. Okay? So I didn't know about the outcome. I didn't know so that I could actually make the move. You know what I'm saying? I think this can be generalized to like almost anyone in any situation, right? And even people who succeeded after a roundabout journey, after a journey full of ups and downs, we see, like when we watch interviews and even when we read biographies, we see them saying, had I known how difficult it would be, I probably wouldn't have started it. Yes, that's a common sentiment, right, among people who had difficult journeys but came out victorious. And at the same time, they will say something to the effect of they actually are glad they got through it and that they actually made the journey. They got invaluable lessons out of it, or that's what got them there, where they are, right? So basically, in order to have an experience, it almost requires that you don't know how it's gonna go. And that is somewhat like why we go to watch movies. We have a general idea of what the movie is about, or how the general feeling of the movie, the general genre of the movie, but we don't want spoilers. And of course, sometimes we will go watch a movie that we've already seen like multiple times, but that's different. Like in most cases, we go to watch a new movie because we want the freshness, or we want the entertainment comes from having not knowing what's going to happen beforehand. And so life experiences is analogous in that sense to watching movies. We don't want too much, we don't want to ruin the surprise, of course. And so I was looking back to all the things that didn't work out and all the difficulties, all the hardships that I had around that, associated with that. I would ask, like internally, like why God? Didn't you tell me beforehand? And the answer I got, maybe not from God, but from myself, or the part of myself that is directly connected to God. The answer was, I wanted to experience it all. I wanted to experience the full spectrum of human emotions, which can be real, vast. The gap, if you will. And in order to experience the fullness of it, because the mind can interfere with the decision-making process, we don't want the mind to know too much about it, because it only wants the good and not the bad. But many of the movies that we go to, they don't have just the good and no bad, because that would be very boring. So the ups and downs, the crises even, the bad things happening, or at least that's how the way it seems in the moment. That's what makes a great story. That's what I learned about creating great stories, which I studied once before. At one time in my life. That's what I meant to say. And cruel as it may seem, especially if you're actually in the middle of going through a difficult episode, difficult chapter in your life, the story is what you're left with in the end. You went into it for that experience, even when you may come out empty-handed. And not every film ends like that. Of course, some in the story, the hero or heroine may end up with lots of actual rewards, physical rewards. But I would like to think those physical rewards, material rewards, as only a representation of the inner transformation of the protagonist. And actually that's how most stories, novels, movies, like what they are meant to convey, is always about what one becomes, not what one has or gathers in the end, because that's actually one of the elements that fluctuates the most, depending on the genre, of course. But the physical belongings, the material status, is what seemingly fluctuates, one of the things that fluctuates the most. Of course, along with the emotional state. Of the protagonist and those like us watching or reading that stories, following the story. And I don't watch a lot of movies, like Confession. And I don't know, there are some reasons why, but I think a lot of it is I would rather make my life a story, or live the story of my life, rather than experience anything vicariously. Secondhand. I want first-hand experience. And that's why I insist, for example, two of my favorite hobbies, classical piano and soccer. In this modern age, for both of those hobbies, I can easily be a spectator. I can listen to professionals playing impeccable music. And that's one of the points of classical classical music. And like as we get like generation after generation, the skills and the refinement goes higher and higher. Artists, pianists, and artists now, they start earlier. They're much better prepared, much better educated, and even the sound quality or the quality of recording, it gets better and better of the technology because of the technology. So, in a way, without me working towards anything, as the years go by, I can listen to better and better music without me having to work for anything. And yes, it is satisfying to an extent. Yet there's a reason why I insist on training myself, practicing. So that I could play one of those masterpieces to the level that's as high as possible for me to reach personally. Although it may sound nowhere near as polished as those professionals. Although it's my aspiration that I will reach their level, at least in some of the pieces that I really enjoy. Not across the board, but at least for the pieces that I really, really want to master. And same goes for soccer as well. And soccer, not just in what's interesting, for soccer, there's one more level, not just watching professional soccer, but also I could play video games to even more closely simulate actual playing. And in that case, there's even some advantages to the video games because I then, most of the games are you control the whole team, not just one player. And so you can, depending on your skill level, the whole team follows your order. In contrast to actual playing, you can be only one player, no matter how good you are. You have no control over how good your teammates are or the players in the opposite team. And yes, I used to play a lot of FIFA, which is no longer. They changed the name. But FIFA is, for people who don't know, it's one of the most popular soccer games of all time. And they put out new versions every year now. But anyways, for more than a decade, since I was young, I played FIFA. The first FIFA I've played was FIFA 99. So it came out in 1998. Because they put the number of the next year, right? So that was the first one I played, and then I played all the way up to FIFA 12, which came out in 2011. But I, kept playing it for much longer than that. So it doesn't mean I stopped playing at 2011. I just stopped upgrading because my computer wasn't good enough or something like that. So, yeah, easily more than a decade. I played a lot more virtually than actual soccer. But these days, I don't even play any games, not just soccer games, video games in soccer. I don't play almost no. I rarely play any games these days. And I spend a lot of time, not as much as playing virtual games because it's much easier to play hours and hours rather than play actual soccer for hours a day. But still, I actually spend time playing with an actual soccer ball. And the simple reason is because there's a limit to what you can experience secondhand, virtually, vicariously. And there's a reason why your soul came down to this body. And I can tell you point blank, it is for the experience. And there's a saying in my culture, you come into the world empty-handed, you leave the world empty-handed. Yeah, I think there may be similar sayings in many other cultures. And we can't take any of the material belongings that we may have accumulated over the course of our lives. And so from the soul perspective, the only thing we can carry to our next lives or beyond this life would be the experiences. And how we got wiser for those experiences. I know that the soul I carry, or the soul that carries me, is a very wise one. Now it's safe for me to say that at this point, 27 minutes into the video. You know I'm not bragging. If you're watching me, listening to me this long. But what did it want to learn or experience? Was there anything it didn't really like? Even with how old that soul is there even more to experience and learn? Like, is there something it hasn't experienced? So, to use that logic, we can deduce that the life we're here to live, in this moment in history, human and beyond, we're in for something indescribably precious. A priceless gem of an experience, of a life. And just like a good story, it is full of ups and downs and full of emotions and lessons coming out of those different and difficult sometimes experiences. So, as I am at a point where I could leave behind the past of the difficult experiences, And what I need to do for myself is to acknowledge that even as an old soul, the hardships was not a characteristics or not a characteristic of my inadequacy. It's just that if you feel like you're an old soul, if you feel like you're different, if you feel like you come from beyond this realm, we need to grant ourselves the acknowledgement that it's not you, it's this earth. It's the density of this realm. It's not you. It's not your inadequacy. It's not your inability to cope. Just this dense realm is difficult as heck for anybody. It has been normal that things don't work out, even with all the wisdom, all the soul wisdom and history that you carry. And largely because this realm is very upside down. It has been. It's about to change. The change is about to start to put the right side up. But I need to acknowledge that things should have worked out, not just through my left brain mind logic, but even like according to spiritual principles. Things like I entrusted some people based on my assumption that they will keep their side of the bargain. They will keep the word. And they ripped me off. Or in some cases, they had the willingness to keep their word, but they didn't have the capacity. They weren't capable enough to deliver. And in the higher realms, things work more smoothly and more in line with the higher principles. So if you're like me, we're actually literally born with a design of living out of higher principles. That's a channel 1020 if you know anything about human design. It is only natural that you don't really jive well, gel well, or glide over this life smoothly. And having said that, I don't know if there's actually anyone who has had a smooth sailing life. After we consider all of the factors. Because I've come to know that even people who may seem to have everything together, when you look deeper, there's something not quite right. There's something off in their lives. Everyone has that. And so it is important to understand that the hardship it didn't happen because of anything you did wrong. Things not going right is how it has been. I mean, how this realm is. It has been one of the characteristics of this realm, and thankfully we are moving out of that density, and that is why some of us may be in the transition, as I am, as I described, about to make this leap, and now I'm in between. Maybe I'm even, no, I haven't made the leap. I know what to do, but this is scary because it reminds me of so many of the leaps that I made in the past. So I have the bruises, and it's almost like trauma, PTSD. I've done a lot of shadow work, and I've worked with my own versions of those different traumas. But now, at this point, I know it is not an individual thing. It is a collective one. It is a generic earth trauma of being earthbound, especially when you come from a higher realm. I'm told from multiple sources, and I have good reasons to believe, that what we're entering as a collective is something unprecedented across the whole universe. Specifically, what that means: living a higher dimensional reality with lower density, or denser, within a denser physical body. Okay, so to use some metaphysical jargon, to live a 5D life in a 3D body. And I have my own reasons to believe that is exactly what's happening. It hasn't been done before. And that is why not only is the new phase that we are about to enter in our lives new on an individual and human level, earthly level, it is new on a cosmic level as well. So in a sense, there's no one who could tell us what it's going to be like. The unknown. In a sense, we are pioneers. At the frontier of the whole universe. So there's not much sources that we can turn to get advice, except that this is going to be like an we're going to write the script of this new story movie of our lives, our new lives, as we go along. And I don't want it to sound too cliche. Because the point, as I explained in the middle of this video, is that it's a story not experienced vicariously like we watch a movie. I think that's the issue, the problem with using movies as a metaphor. We think it's something we just experience, like we are sitting in a theater and we just watch the screen. But you're actually in that movie as a lead character. That is the difference. And you are everything. You write the script, you are the producer, you are the director, all of it. And now many of us, if you're watching, if you're still following me, are at a point where we come to full realization of that's exactly what's happening. And even not knowing being unaware of that fact has been part of the script. So this like goes meta and meta. There are so many levels of different layers. And I think that's a good time to wrap up this message. I hope my message hit different than the cliche of you are the scriptwriter of your life, you're the creator of your life. And yes, but if we were to fully admit that, fully own that, we want to, we would need to fully own what has happened up to this point in our lives. And the question, the inevitable question, at least for me, is why did I write the early struggles? Why did I write that part? What's the point? And we would love to just erase that difficult parts of our lives. But it's clear that we would need to carry them as what's actually happened. I mean, there must have been a point of those happenings, even though we are to let go of the past, right? So I think that's a critical answer, or question and answer, question that we would need to answer for ourselves in order to become the full owner of our reality, not just creators, because we are already that, but the ownership of the creatorship. Okay, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.